Yeah. All right, so Fidelity did a study a while ago, and guess what they found out to be the best class of investor? It was dead people, and that was followed by people who forgot that they had an account.
Hey guys, my name is Gabe Bolt. If you are new to my channel, I talk about financial independence, early retirement, and life optimization hacks and things like that. So if that's something that interests you and you want to catch some future content, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. It really makes a huge difference. So today we're talking about index fund investing. I've gotten quite a few comments recently of people saying, hey Gabe, I don't want to invest in real estate. I don't want to do house hacking and things like that. What are some other ways that I can invest? And this is what I would recommend to them. This is the only thing that I would really do besides real estate, and this is the most simple and kind of like unsexy way of doing it, but it really works really well. It's very easy to do, and so let's get into it.
Alright, so before we go any further, let's talk about what exactly is an index fund. So I'm just going to use an example here. There's going to be a few that I'm going to talk about, and I'll give you my recommendations at the end of this video and the ones I'm using myself. But just as an example, let's use the S&P 500. So pretty much the S&P 500 is an index fund that tracks the top 500 companies in the US. So instead of owning like one share of Apple and one share of Microsoft or something like that, you're owning a small percentage of 500 different shares. You're actually buying part of all of those companies. You're becoming an investor with them, and you are getting a percentage of that. So it really diversifies yourself so that if one thing goes down, it doesn't really matter that much because the overall market is gonna continue to go up. And one really cool example that I liked about this, these different stocks can only go down 100%. So if you own all of these, they can only go down 100%, but they can go up 100%, 200%, 500%, 10,000%, whatever it happens to be, they can continue to go up. So the dogs, the ones that miss, the ones that lose, are going to go down to zero, but the ones that really take off, the Amazons, the whatever they happen to be, when you get them little and they really explode, you're going to make sure you get that. So the overall market is continuing to grow, and they're fighting with each other, they're growing. So that is why I think it is really cool to own a bunch of different stocks instead of just one, because I'm not smart enough to know what company is going to take off in 5 years. So I'd rather bet on the entire US market and bet that that is going to continue to grow.
So when you're doing it this way, if you're getting like VTSAX or the S&P 500, pretty much you are betting on the entire stock market, and therefore you will get the average of what the entire economy does. So a few different points here. So it's important to stay in long term because there are going to be dips, there are going to be recessions, and it's really hard to stick with that when you see your money like drop by say 50% and everybody's saying it's going to drop another 50% or another 75%. It's really hard to stick with that. But you need to know that this is going to happen. At some point, your money will disappear by half. And the people who sell at that point are the people who miss out. The people who stick it through and really just ignore what's going on in the market, those people are the ones that will become rich, will become successful, and will make it through. And you really see that recession or that time when the market dips as an opportunity to buy more, not as a time to sell. That really determines who will be rich and who will get killed by recessions. If you look at like 2008, the people who sold are the ones that really got hurt, and the people who bought at that time became millionaires. So the next point is that you're going to have to accept being average. You're going to have to accept the average return of the market. So a lot of people think that, I know I struggled with this myself when I was starting to learn about stocks, and I was like, oh, well, if I just buy the stocks that are going to do good and I ignore the ones that are going to do bad, then I can outperform the market. That's what a lot of people think. But so this is actually, it's really a lot harder to do than it sounds, because the company today that is really amazing and is crushing it could be gone tomorrow. Something could come up, a competitor could come up and crush them, something could happen. And you never know that the one that is doing horrible right now could explode tomorrow, and you'll never know. So it's actually a lot better to really just average that out and ride it out. And even though you hear average, 84% of Vanguard's no-load mutual funds perform better than their peer group average over the past 10 years. So why index fund investing is really powerful is also not only is it just tracking an index, so there's nobody actively trying to pick the right stock. This is tracking everything that is in that certain thing, whether it's the top 500 or like VTSAX, which is the Vanguard Total Stock Money Index Fund, will track every stock in America. So pretty much you're betting on all of America to do well. That's 3,700 stocks or something like that, where you're tracking everything. So you're gonna get those ones that really explode, and then also some will drop off, but it's kind of like a self-cleansing process. So the cool thing about index funds, especially through Vanguard, is their expense ratio is so crazy low. It's like 0.04, 0.05, 0.07, depending on which one you're using. So that's like if you have $10,000 invested, that's gonna be about $4 that you're paying for a year, which is extremely low. And as that continues to grow over time, you're gonna have a large sum in there, and that's gonna make a huge difference, that little bit, as opposed to if you're paying like an actively managed mutual fund, or you're paying fees for each trade, then you're gonna end up paying maybe 1 or 1.5%, and that can be a huge difference. And why it is such a huge difference is because of the 4% rule. So if you're looking to reach financial independence and early retirement, you probably know or need to know about the 4% rule. So very basically, I've done a whole video on this, but we'll just keep it simple. The 4% rule pretty much is you need to build up enough wealth that you're able to live off 4% of that. So you calculate your expenses, what your expenses would be for the whole year. So let's say if your expenses for the whole year are $40,000, we'll just use simple numbers. And then you would times that by 25, and then you would land at $1 million. So if you are able to accumulate $1 million worth of wealth making 8%, then you'll be able to retire and live off that 4% pretty much indefinitely. And with the Trinity study, which that was based on, that worked like 96 to 99% of the time. So unless something goes really wrong, that's pretty much going to work out. But if you want to make it like pretty much foolproof, you can drop it down to 3%. But also if the economy is booming, you could do 7% and still be, keeping your money where it is. So it's just really going to depend for the different person. So, and it really just depends on what your savings rate is as to how soon you will get there. So if you're at a 75% savings rate, then you'll be able to reach that number in 6.7 years. But if you're only at a 10% savings rate, it's going to be like 38 years. So that is why it's so important about not just how much you make, but how much you're spending, because that will make a huge difference. Now, you can help yourself out by earning more and then also investing what you're earning, so that can really compound over time. But if you want to reach financial independence and early retirement quickly, you really need to cut down your expenses, and you need to start investing the money you do have so that can grow, and then also trying to figure out ways to make maybe some passive income. But let's say you get to that number. If you got to that number, whatever it happened to be for you, then you're probably going to continue to making money after you leave your job, and your assets are going to continue to grow if you are investing them, and you probably built up some streams of passive income, because that can make a huge difference. And then let's say worse comes to worse and the market crashes, we could do some geo arbitrage. So this is something that I think is really fun. So let's say you live in the States and you live in a higher cost state. You can move to a lower cost state that could be 20, 30, 50% less. So let's say the stock market goes down 50%. You could move to a different state if you are flexible, because maybe you're not working or something like that. If you're still working, then you're probably going to be fine. But let's say you weren't working, then you can move to a different state where it's going to cost 20, 30, 50% less. And then that really won't make that much of a difference. And you can always go back after it's done, or you can stay there if you enjoy it, or you can do something like a little more extreme, and you could go to like South America, you could go to Thailand or Greece and really go out and explore. And these places, your money's worth like 5 to 10 times more than it would be like if you're in like a higher cost place in the States. So anyways, what I would recommend you guys doing is going ahead and opening up a Vanguard account. It takes about 20 minutes. It's really easy to do. And then going ahead and getting VTSAX or VTI, which is the ETF version of VTSAX. And this is the total stock market index. And then you're able to just continue to buy, and it's more important about time in the market than timing the market, because you never know. It's like an all-time high right now, and people are saying like there's a crash coming, and I've definitely heard that. I've definitely been thinking that, but
you never know. Like, it's an all-time high right now, but it was also an all-time high a few years ago, and a few years before that, a few years before that, and 20 years ago, and 40 years ago. It's always going to be continuing to rise, and you don't know. We could be right in front of our next recession, in which case, if you have a good savings rate, you'll be able to buy more at really cheap prices, and that's probably actually a good thing. But if it's not, you don't know. You could miss out on the biggest bull run in history. Like, you really don't know what's going to happen, and these experts on the news, they don't know what's going to happen, even though they try to say it's all gonna come crashing down, and then the other person's saying we're just beginning this. It's really almost impossible to know. And if someone did know, and they did know how to time that, they would be one of the richest people on earth, and everybody would know about it. So it's really, really hard to do. You can like look at warning signs and stuff, but it's also almost better. And that is why the dead people and the people who forgot their accounts, who actually don't do anything, they were more successful investing than the people who try to dance in and out and time the market. It's really almost impossible to do. Anyways, if you guys like this, I listened to actually the entire book of A Simple Path to Wealth. It's about 6 hours and 45 minutes, I believe it was. I listened to that all in the last 12 hours. Really hurts your brain, but it was a really, really good book, and it talks a lot about that index fund investing. So I'll put a link in it in my bio if you guys want to check that out. You don't have to use my link, but if you do, I will get a percentage because we talked about that in the last video. Anyways, I would highly recommend that book or the Stock Series by J.L. Collins, which is online. I'll put a link to that as well. That was some really, really amazing content if you want to dig more into this than I could do in, a 12-minute video or whatever this ends up being. So thank you guys very much. Please like if you guys got some value out of this, and comment down below. Thank you for sticking around.